Case intake note, recovered from the first archive pass. The Bureau receives a dashcam clip where the exit number is already counting backward. The first problem is not what it says. The first problem is where the record says it came from. This is a Bureau of Lost Signals case file, original fiction, reconstructed like an archive recording. The case is called "The Highway Sign Started Counting Back." At the center is a highway sign, a wrong exit, and a countdown that starts before the car arrives. No gore, no easy monster, just timestamps, witness notes, and one mistake the file keeps making on purpose. It should be explainable. Not yet. The first version sounds like damaged equipment. The second sounds like coincidence. The third sounds like it knows who is listening. The file begins with a dashcam still of an electronic highway sign counting backward, ordinary enough to be missed until the records disagree. The first impossible detail is practical. The countdown starts in dashcam footage before the car reaches the road. Then the pattern changes. The Bureau traces the mismatch back to an empty, rain-slick highway shoulder, but every clean explanation creates a new contradiction. The proof object matters because it stays boring on camera. A dashcam still of an electronic highway sign counting backward simply updates before anyone can explain why. By the second review pass, the archive has 3 versions of the same event. One from the room, one from the evidence log, and one from a record that should not exist yet. The sign is not warning drivers about a road closure. It is indexing the next car to disappear from the footage. Ask the obvious question. Why did nobody notice it the first time? Here is the part that made the Bureau stop treating it like noise. That is when the case stops behaving like damaged equipment and starts behaving like a witness correcting the official record. The last frame shows exit 0 reflected in a windshield that has no driver. The public file ends there. The private file keeps the failed terms, so the next Bureau run does not repeat the same signal. Then, it answers. The ordinary explanation fails first. A dashcam still of an electronic highway sign counting backward should only prove one small thing, but the record around it keeps adding context from an empty, rain-slick highway shoulder. That matters, because the Bureau can dismiss a sound, but it cannot dismiss a physical object that updates before a person touches it. The file keeps its language narrow. Highway sign, mile marker, countdown, wrong exit. That constraint is important. The case is not allowed to borrow old Bureau mythology to feel larger. It has to earn tension from its own object, its own location, and the exact way the evidence contradicts the log. Start with the premise again, but slower. A highway sign begins counting down to an exit that does not exist on any map. The first pass makes it sound like a mistake. The second pass makes the mistake repeatable. By the third pass, a dashcam still of an electronic highway sign counting backward is no longer background detail. It is the part of the room that seems to understand the investigation. The anomaly stays practical. The countdown starts in dashcam footage before the car reaches the road. Nobody in the file treats that like a prophecy. They treat it like a maintenance problem, until the maintenance notes begin arriving out of order. That is the turn from atmosphere into evidence. The human consequence is small, which is why it lands. Someone has to stand in an empty, rain-slick highway shoulder, look at a dashcam still of an electronic highway sign counting backward, and decide whether the next playback is a test or an invitation. The Bureau keeps those moments because systems fail loudly, but people notice the silence afterward. The reveal does not need a bigger monster. The sign is not warning drivers about a road closure. It is indexing the next car to disappear from the footage. It needs a cleaner chain of custody. Once the object and the record disagree in the same direction, the audience can feel the rule without being told to believe it. The unresolved hook stays attached to this case. The last frame shows exit 0 reflected in a windshield that has no driver. That gives the next episode room to be new. The system records the failed terms, avoids the old motifs, and lets this file close around its own evidence. Beat note. Cold open proof centers on. The Bureau receives a dashcam clip where the exit number is already counting backward. The visual should stay with a dashcam still of an electronic highway sign counting backward, and the terms highway sign, mile marker, countdown, wrong exit. Not with a generic archive wall. Beat note. Name the anomaly centers on. The detail that breaks the file is this. The countdown starts in dashcam footage before the car reaches the road. Beat note. Ground the file centers on. The object in evidence is a dashcam still of an electronic highway sign counting backward. Beat note. Add the human texture, centers on. The first staff note does not describe fear. It describes a dashcam still of an electronic highway sign counting backward, behaving like it had been logged before.